So a little change of pace here, okay? I want you all to think about a little 8, 9-year-old girl, Japanese American, after World War II, around the time of World War II, a little before, right around there. And this little girl goes into an aquarium. In fact, it was the old New York aquarium, old New York City aquarium. She went in there and she looked in an aquarium and she saw the fish in the aquarium. And she fell in love with the fish and with the ocean. And she wanted to learn more. That little girl's experience in an aquarium back in the 30s, I think it was, late 30s when she first walked in there, was Jeannie Clark, the shark lady. Jeannie Clark went on to break glass ceilings that no woman had ever broken before. She became one of the foremost ichthyologists. Everybody calls her the shark lady, but she loved all ichthyology, all fish. And she became a real groundbreaker for not just women, but so many different people. And her exploits became the fodder of books, the shark lady. National Geo followed her all around the world. This young woman over on the Sinai Peninsula, all by herself, with a bunch of Israelis and Arabs, and riding on camels to go into the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aqaba and study sharks. National Geo followed all of this. The Vanderbilt family, Bill and Ann Vanderbilt, read about Jeannie. They fell in love with Jeannie. They fell in love with her passion for her science. And they wrote her a letter. And they said, Jeannie, why don't you come to Florida, to Southwest Florida, and we'll build you the same kind of lab that you have in the Sinai, down in Sharm el-Sheikh, Ras Mohammed area, down there at the Straits of Tiran, where Gulf of Aqaba goes off the Red Sea, if you're familiar with that area. And Jeannie said, sure. So she came to Florida, and they built her a little one-room shack of a lab, not even as big as this room, because that's exactly what she had in the Sinai. And that was the beginning of Mote Marine Laboratory nearly 70 years ago. One woman, a groundbreaker, and a volunteer that she had, Earl Chadwick, who was a shark fisherman. Because Jeannie, the shark lady, didn't know how to catch sharks. So Burl came in and helped her with that. And it was Jeannie's passion for her science. It was the partnership that she had with the local fishing community. And it was the philanthropy of the Vanderbilts that really formed the three base pillars, the foundations of what is today a global research enterprise that conducts work literally around the world. We have a staff of nearly 300 people. We have 8 different campuses in the state of Florida. We have 27 very diverse research programs, everything from Jeannie's Shark Research Program, National Center for Shark Research, to marine biomedical, immunology, microbiology, all different kinds of fisheries, marine mammals, sea turtles, ocean technology, engineering, artificial intelligence, machine learning, everything that you can think of that could be done in science, except what NCAR does, because NCAR does it better than anybody could do. We stay out of the atmosphere. But we have grown into that enterprise and we're completely independent. Now think about this. We've grown to 300 staff, 70 years in existence. We have about a $30 million a year annual operating budget. Over 50% of that comes from competitive research grants that our staff go out and secure from NSF, NIH, state agencies, large foundations. And we have no contracts, no tenure. We shake hands. When I hire somebody, I write them a letter and say, congratulations, I'm offering you this position. This is how much we're going to pay you. This is your job. You sign at the bottom, you accept it, and that's the last piece of paper that you have that comes anywhere near being a contract. And yet we have people that have been there for 40 years. In fact, one of the longest serving scientists is a guy that leads our biomedical research program. We talked about this the other night, John. We've isolated a protein complex from the epigonal organ of bonnethead sharks that has significant inhibition of 15 different types of human cancer, while having non-significant impacts to healthy cell lines of the same patient, and that's the holy grail, right? You want to kill the cancer but not kill the healthy cells. And the amazing work that we're doing quite often is challenging existing paradigms of science. And one of the things that frustrated me the most during the whole COVID crap was the science says. The science says. There is no such thing as the science. You always question science. When you stop questioning science, it becomes a religion. You must question science, always. That is how science advances. Climate change. Question climate change. Everything you hear about climate change, question it. That's how we advance the knowledge about it. That's how we advance the knowledge of everything that we do. And at Mote, we have independent scientists that have that same passion that Jeannie had for her science. We partner with the community, and I'm here. I've met a lot of great people here, and I really enjoy being here. But the reason I'm here is because of the combat wounded vets. They called. It was at your birthday party.
Yes, sir, it was.
And you were there, and the two of them cornered me.
That's a tough thing.
And you said, the combat wounded vets are coming up here. You talked about the milfoil. You said, why don't you come up? We can have good times up there together. We can do another mission together. And I said, I'm there. You didn't have to ask me twice.
Block out 2 weeks in a year.
Yeah. Always do that without fail. And that's partnership. That's partnership in the community. That's partnership with combat wounded vets. So it's passion, partnership, and philanthropy. Coming back to philanthropy. I said over 50% of our annual budget is competitive grants that we go out and get. I'll match our scientists up publication for a PhD, for grants gotten, whatever you want. They're some of the best and brightest in the world. But we don't have tenure. We don't have state funding. We're not an agency lab at a federal or state level. How do we make up the difference? It's philanthropy. That's what makes up the difference. And the important thing about philanthropy is when we said, you know what? After the Great Barrier Reef had a bleaching event, like we're sort of facing down in the Keys now, it was back in, I think it was 16, 17 time frame. A colleague of mine in Australia quoted in the journal Science of saying, he basically was putting his head in his hands, and he was saying, we've seen 100-year-old coral die. There's nothing we can do about it. And I thought, what are you saying? Science can do something about this. Don't hang your head. We're going to do something about it. And we proposed doing something about it. We proposed something that was radical, challenged the existing paradigms of science that this scientist just stated, that you can't bring a 100-year-old coral head back. And we said, you know, we just might be able to do that. We developed a microfragmentation and fusion technology that causes coral fragments to grow 40 to 50 times as fast as they normally would. And we combined that with a genetic resiliency research program. We built a whole facility to test all the different, thousands of different genotypes in the field. We've documented it in peer-reviewed publications. And the most important thing is, it's spawned. In coral, we're sorry guys, size matters when it comes to sex. It's not how old you are, it's how big you are. So if you can grow a 50-year-old coral size in 5 years, it spawns. That's what we did. And so we're going to put ourselves out of business in 10 years if we get $100 million, $10 million a year. We will restore about 30% of the restorable area of the Florida Keys, up to a 30% living coral cover. When I lived in Key West as a boy, my father was a naval aviator down there. The living coral cover was 60%, 60%. It's now 2 to 5%. It cannot self-sustain, it cannot reproduce. It is going extinct. And while climate change is real, politicians and scientific debate will go on ad infinitum on how to deal with the forcing functions of climate change. Mote's perspective is, let's do something about it. As scientists, we can monitor coral reefs and other marine organisms and habitats into extinction, or we can use science to do something about it.
Yeah.
And the innovation, the fuel for innovation, is philanthropy. Once we had the philanthropic support, we demonstrated we could do it. Guess what? State of Florida is kicking in millions of dollars. Philanthropy's still kicking in millions of dollars. The feds, still, we're getting a little bit there. We're getting a little bit there too as well. But I tell you, we can't restore those reefs by ourselves. It takes partnerships, it takes hands, and that's why I'm here, is because of the combat wounded vets. And as General said, one day, one tank, we were on 0 when we came up, but one tank, over 1,000 coral planted. It's a record breaker. And our staff in half a day now can plant thousands and thousands and thousands of coral. Our goal is to plant 1 million coral in 10 years and put ourselves out of the coral restoration business. But that's the power of philanthropy. That's the power of philanthropy. So that's all I've got to say.
How do you define living coral cover?
A living coral polyp would be living coral. And you can actually go out and basically you take quadrats and transects. Now all the fancy stuff you can do with photogrammetry as well. And you can calculate the percent living coral cover on the bottom that is a habitable coral environment. A sand environment is not a habitable, we don't plant coral on a sand environment.
Two-dimensional approach or three-dimensional?
Very much three-dimensional. Rugosity is incredibly important, very, very important to this.
What is the ecological virtue of living coral?
Now that's a good question. Very good question. Okay, so let me put it this way. What is it? In the state of Florida alone, just in the Keys, it's the basis of a $6 billion a year economy. Okay, so money. When you look at biodiversity, it's like a rainforest in terms of the overall ocean biodiversity. When you look at everyone in this room right now is breathing. And what we are breathing in is the oxygen. That's what sustains us. 50 to 80% of the oxygen that you're breathing right now comes from plants in the ocean, not on land. So, if you want to continue to breathe, you need a healthy ocean. And in order to have a healthy ocean, you must have a healthy rainforest of the sea, which is coral reefs. Now, if you get into the insurance business, who was I talking to about insurance? Yes, Bermuda. The insurance business, right? Okay, those coral reefs are Mother Nature's resiliency, the stormwater surge to the waves that come on. So much of our coastal environment in the tropics all around the world, you're talking billions of dollars of insurance losses if you do not have viable living coral. The minute the coral polyps die, the calcium carbonate skeleton that they excrete becomes eroded. And as that erodes down, those waves start breaking on shore instead of 5-10 miles offshore. So all of those reasons, but probably economic, aesthetic, cultural, but if you want to breathe, you need coral.
So does coral enhance plankton development?
In that environment, it does. It's a balance. There's no question about it. We talked about harmful algal blooms, which are plankton. Red tide, unfortunately, and people don't like it in Florida when I say it, but it's God's honest truth because it's science. It's naturally occurring. It occurred when the Spanish explorers were sailing around the state of Florida. We're never going to get rid of red tide. But we can use science, and we are using science right now as part of the Florida Red Tide Mitigation Technology Development Initiative. We've developed nearly 24 different technologies and approaches now over 4 years, or in our last 2 years of the initiative, that can decrease the ecological, economic, and quality of life impacts of red tide when it begins to occur. All these other harmful algal blooms that you're seeing around the world, including the harmful algal bloom that initiated the seagrass die-off in the Indian River Lagoon that then caused the manatee die-off, that was definitely harmful algal bloom that was connected to human inputs from the land. There's things you can do to control that, but many of these technologies are also applicable to other harmful algal blooms all around the world. When we think of blue economy at Mote, we're thinking about taking all of this science and technology and transferring that intellectual property to entrepreneurs, venture investors that are going to take what comes out of this science and do something with it, whether it's sustainable aquaculture, whether it's over-the-counter drugs, any kind of derived product from the sea, pharmaceuticals, harmful algal bloom technologies, whatever it might be. Yes, sir.